Leanne, I'm excited to have you with me today on Life's Checkmark. And we were talking briefly over the phone for a little bit, yeah, just to get to know each other because we were connected with a mutual friend of ours who was on the podcast over a year ago. And you were sharing some pretty interesting stuff with me. I just want to let's just start this off with what is exciting you the most at the moment, and then you can share a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, of course. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me on your podcast. Super excited. First one. So I'm even more excited, also nervous. So no one out there judge me on this. Um, but most excited about having such an impact on people's lives is really just what keeps me thriving every day. Um, and it's just so rewarding. I know it's like a very selfless act that I do, that I get rewarded by for what it is that I do. And the journey that I've been on to get here. But it's just amazing to really be, I feel like that the good in the world.
Yeah. And so, what are you doing at the moment?
So I'm a financial advisor. I have a platform within Northwestern Mutual, and I have been on this entrepreneurial journey for about a year at this point in time. And I did not see this coming. It kind of just happened. We kind of all go through ebbs and flows, and I've always done really well for myself, which I'm really proud that I've always been able to accomplish a lot in my life. And even though it's not who we are wholeheartedly, right? We're so much more than just what we do for work. But I always felt like I was always able to help people in like small aspects of their lives, and the impact wasn't as grand as I wanted it to be. And after my last employment, I felt like a caged animal. Like I just needed to kind of break free a little bit. So I did a little research on how I'd be able to really help people impact their lives and change their lives for the better. And financial advising was like top notch. It checked all the boxes for me, and even what it provides for myself and my family at this point as well. So just being able to really help people know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I meet everyone with where they're at, and I kind of help the underdog. I feel like financial advisors, most of us kind of go for the hedge funds or the lawyers and doctors. And there's nothing wrong with that because everyone needs a financial advisor and everyone needs they need a buddy system, right? It's super important. But for me, I really kind of given back to the community that's always put food on my table, which are small businesses and those that are in union blue collar professionals.
So, what were you doing? Go
Go
ahead. I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
All right. I was going to say, what were you doing prior to doing the financial advisor?
Yeah, so prior to this, I was in the corporate America in the medical field. So I've always dealt with finances at some capacity, whether it's just finances, insurances, building up businesses. So for me, it really didn't delve too far away from what I was already doing. It's just more in tune to the financial aspect of things and investments, which were new for me to learn from this scale of finances, obviously, right? These are things that were not taught in school that we typically don't know anything about. We're trying to just Google things or chat GPT everything. So just being able to have way more experience in that has been so enlightening. Even conversations that my husband and I now have about things like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What about the market today? It's been interesting.
That's cool. That's awesome. So you shifted, right? So I mean, I know you said that you were a little rough in the corporate area and you wanted to move. So did you do something like to change your mindset to look at this in a totally different way to take on this new journey of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I've always had a lot of spunk and spark. So I really just kind of honed into who I am and who I've kind of created myself to be. And I know that whatever I put my heart and soul into, it works out at some point in time. And even though this entrepreneurial journey is a very big personal development aspect of things, um, it has definitely kind of put me back on my tail a little bit just to be humble on things. And not that I wasn't, but it just kind of puts things into different perspective. You get to appreciate things a little bit more in life. And you really have to hold yourself accountable. a lot of us were used to going to a 9 to 5. We are held accountable by someone else, an office manager or, the boss themselves. And being an entrepreneur, like you have to make sure you get out of bed every day and like you have to hustle and bustle to build your book of business and see how many people you could really help impact in their lives. So it's definitely hard days. Like there's nothing easy about this. Nothing. But what makes it easy is the lives that I have been able to impact and that I'm still impacting. Like the great conversations that I'm able to have with my clients and just the relationships that I'm able to have, whether they're, from a personal standpoint or just a professional standpoint, right? Like I always think of things like this. John, you and I would have never met unless we had a mutual connection, right? So like who knows where my evening would have been tonight if it wasn't on your podcast. So it's always great for me to accept opportunities in whichever form that they come. So just being welcoming, I guess, is an appropriate word for that. Welcome different opportunities differently than how we technically envision them to be. And I feel like entrepreneurs, we normally have a really good like head on our shoulders and we're go-getters, but sometimes I feel like we get stuck in our own ways when things don't work out the way we had envisioned them or planned them to be. So just from more of that personal development side, just welcoming opportunities in different forms has been a really big relief for me. And I'm a type A person, not to call myself out, but it's definitely allowed me to just further my growth for who I am personally and professionally. So that's what kind of keeps it going.
And it makes you feel alive, right? Helping these people, getting up and doing what you're doing. I can see it, I can hear it, it's in your voice for sure too, that you're alive, so you're enjoying this. I don't know how much you might have experienced this already, but as an entrepreneur, do you find yourself looking at all these different like shiny objects in a way? Like I have to do this, do this, do this, and you're not focusing on the one thing?
Yes, for sure. Sometimes things totally are like eye-catching, right? I feel like I sometimes spread myself too thin, where I feel like I have to be consistently doing networking events or, doing speaking engagements. But as much as I have kind of toned down not needing to be at every event and participate in every event, I do find a lot of joy in them. So I balance it out with a necessity versus like, am I just filling my schedule with nonsense? Because as that entrepreneurial journey, you need to make sure that that whole time management comes into play. Like what you're filling your schedule with is actually going to bring something forward for you, right? And sometimes it's not so much bringing something to you, but bringing something to somebody else. And like that's the service industry, right? Like that's what I'm in. I'm in for providing a service for people that don't have the education behind it, don't even know where to start, and meet them with where they're at. So it definitely gets sometimes a little overwhelming with all the shininess that goes around, and it's kind of like anything else in life where you feel like you almost sort of have to kind of keep up with the Joneses in a sense, like, oh, well, they're doing this and they're doing that. But, we're all out here trying to make a better difference for people in their lives. That's why we normally have gone on this entrepreneurial journey. And I just try to re-hone in my why. Like, why did I start doing this? What's my purpose? And that typically keeps me grounded and keeps the shininess, makes me have my sunglasses on so I don't get blinded by it.
That's great. And yeah, and the why is a big thing. And I say that for people that want to start a podcast, like that's the first thing we work on. And like, say, I could use this with podcasting, right? You could social media, you could do all that stuff. And, you can go on all five of them, whatever it is, but you guys should just focus on the one or the two that you really know and just stick with it for a while. And so with that being said, you have to watch the shiny objects, the areas you're looking at that you had no idea what it's about. Yeah, you have to slowly creep into it. Do you at the moment have like some kind of coach or an accountability partner kind of helping you along the way?
Yeah, so I have my husband.
There you
He
go.
definitely holds me accountable, which is great to have that support system from the home front. One of my best friends, I know I can always do a check-in with him, and he's always like, "All right, dirty talk, like, how's it going? What are we doing?" And then I have a mentor within Northwestern Mutual that holds me accountable from a business perspective as well. So we're able to make sure that we map out what my goals are, what I'm looking to achieve, whether it's for the day or for the month. Sometimes I even look at what I'd like to achieve for this year and kind of backpedal for how that breaks down on a monthly to daily basis. So I definitely have a lot of support, which is great. It definitely makes the journey a little bit easier, to have that support. I know some people who have gone through this journey with no support, and holy moly, do I commend them even more so on that, because that's tough, you know.
That
Like
is tough.
having some support is, it just helps ease things a little bit more. But I am very fortunate for my husband. When I when I came home one day and I was like, so he was like, "Oh man, what now?" And I'm like, "I think I'm gonna quit my job." And he was like, "Okay, but like then what?" And I was like, "I'm gonna think about it. Like give me a little bit." And I did. I just did some research for about a week. And then I literally presented my plan to him. I'm like, "All right, this is what I'm looking to do. This is how I'm gonna do it. What are your thoughts?" And he was like, "Well, you're just going to do it anyway, so I'm just going to support you." And I was like, "I appreciate that you knew I was just going to do it." But he not allows, but in a sense, allows it to just happen, because he knows that I am a go-getter, and I'm going to make this work for us, for what we want to achieve in our lives together, and then when we start a family as well. So he he knows there's no stopping me once I've got my mind set on things. So he's
That's awesome.
accepting it, but really a great support for me. So it's been really, really awesome. So I give him all the credit for the support, really.
Yeah, and that's what you need, right? You need support, especially in that kind of relationship. Um, and even let's just say that you weren't to make it so far down the road, right? With this, maybe you go into something else thereafter, but this is a learning lesson, that you can carry along with you.
For sure.
Right, and having that, your husband next to you supporting you along this journey now, and then thereafter, or you're still doing the same thing, that's what you need. So yeah, with that, the coach, whoever you got in in your contacts and everybody that's helping you, that's very important. I personally, hired some coaches and stuff, which I never did for a long time, and then it's a game changer because they're already at a level, that's a lot higher than where you are, where you want to go. And hopefully you get to that point where they are, and then you might have to find somebody thereafter to take you further. So,
For sure.
yeah, I'm glad you shared that because it's very important. So now that you're a financial advisor and you keep on bringing it up a few times that like nobody knows about money or whatever, right? There's a little saying that you had. Uh, why do you think it is that, people don't really know much about money?
I feel like that's a tough question to answer. I don't know. Like for me, I'm like, why aren't we taught this in schools? Like why isn't this part of our curriculum? Like this is part of adulting, right? You get out of high school and then what? We're kind of just taught like, oh, we'll get a good job. It's like, all right, well, what's really a good job? Like what's, quote unquote, sufficient enough for a good job? What's actually going to be able to provide for me? And, if I decide to have a family down the road too, I just feel like the setup isn't really as much of a firm foundation as what ideally I would like our school systems to be able to provide for our next generations coming.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, part of me, I kind of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole where I'm like, I feel like people aren't educated, like that we don't have the opportunity to get educated on this during schools because, they don't deem it necessary, or, they just don't want people to know about it, and only more of like the quote unquote elite get to know about things like this. And not to go down rabbit holes or like tinfoil hat and stuff and all that other shenanigans, but like, what else am I supposed to think about it? And that's also another reason why my clientele are my clientele, because those, my clientele are also of people of service. So for me, it is a disservice for them to not have a service provided back to them, right? Like this is how we kind of make the world go round. Like it is a give and take, yes, of course, but you have to give back to everybody, not just the CEOs. Like everyone else, they're your everyday human families, that they're the ones that really need the help and assistance too, and want to feel like they are a part of something and they're striving for something better that they've always wanted for themselves and their families, but they don't even know what to do. I have a lot of families who end up whether it's one spouse or the other, it's husband or the wife, whatever, one spouse typically is very reluctant to meet with me at first until I'm like, hey, just meet with me. Let's grab a cup of coffee. We aren't even going to talk business. Let's just kick the bucket and just literally chat, just like you and I are doing right now, right? Just like we had done for our first little, quick phone conversation. And it's like, just get to meet me, ask me whatever you want. I'm an open book. And then after that, typically like, all right, you're actually pretty cool. I got you. And then, we'll be able to then move forward from there. Cause I'm like, I'm literally just here to provide a service because this is something that I know has been kind of like tickling the back of your brain, but you haven't known what to do with it or where to go or who to go to. Most people we're always talking about like, oh, retirement and pensions and, all this other stuff, but we don't really know what it means or what it does for us or how it really works for us now and later. So for me being me, I'm trying to put myself in front of as many people as possible, right? That's how we kind of grow and letting them know that I'm consistent. I'm always here and letting them feel comfortable that I'm here for their best interest. That is my true purpose, is to be here for someone's best interest and help educate them. So they could really do a lot of the financial journey on their own. They don't need me for all of it, but like, hey, I'm totally down for being an accountability partner, for them, just like we have accountability partners for ourselves. So it kind of all just kind of stems back. But educational wise, I think it's a massive flaw in our systems that should be fixed. People should have an understanding of how taxes work, and like who to go to for taxes. I don't do taxes. I'll help you with tax strategies to make it, really awesome for your accountant who does your taxes. But even for really educating people on that aspect, and people they don't want to feel embarrassed. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. Like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So, but it's just allowing yourself to kind of feel comfortable with the uncomfortable in my eyes, and that's also just what we do as entrepreneurs is get very comfortable with the uncomfortable.
That's exactly it. Yeah, what a game changer that is, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. If you had asked me, John, even a year ago, like, oh, you're going to be on a podcast, I would have laughed at you and be like, absolutely not, dude. Like, there's no way. And like, here we are. Like, it was on my 2025 goals for this year to be on a podcast. And here we are.
Check it off. You got it, pal.
Check in. We're moving. We're moving.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you were to ask me 4 years ago if I was going to start a podcast and go through everything I went through, I would have been laughing too. And
Yeah.
thinking
But it's amazing the journey we've been taken on. You're right. And here we are. Here we are just furthering helping ourselves, but also helping others in the same respect. We're all trying to lend a helping hand up together.
Yes. And I'll be honest with you, like I know things about money that, probably some other people don't. Now, do I utilize all of it at the moment? No. But I know of it, right? So my daughter's 12, my son's 15. So I'm kind of trying to share that as much as I can, but there's so much of the outside world. It's hard I think, for them to listen to one person. I'm wrong now because they're almost teenagers, or one is, right? So who am I? But
We never listen to our parents.
I know.
Parents don't know anything.
Yeah, apparently not.
But I do tell them, I'm like, you don't need to go to college. You don't even have to stay in school. Not to say drop out, but most of those elite that I would call them know about all the financial strategies out there, learn from not being in school because they're out of that area. They're talking to entrepreneurs, they're talking to people so far advanced in front of them that I say level up. They just keep leveling up all the time. Yeah. So that's why I love to just at least present something to them or whoever I meet, just so that they can look at it if they ever decide to go down that path.
Which I commend you on. I think that's absolutely amazing. The exposure is what children need. Just so it's a food for thought for them because, especially 12 and 15, right? Those are really fun ages.
Oh yeah.
I have 11 nieces and nephews from age 1 to 14. So like I'm on the same board with you. I got it. And my oldest is a niece. She's just really keeps me on my toes here. But they're definitely a hard age to chat with sometimes, especially when it's coming from their parents. I'm fortunate I have a beautiful relationship with my nieces, so they're a little bit more inclined to like hear and see what I'm doing, which is great. And I want them to be exposed. They look at it like, what kind of goodie bags did you get today, from the conferences? So of course they're looking at it still from a kid's perspective, but they understand still what that means for me. Like, I'm at work, I'm meeting people, I'm trying to help impact people's lives. And they're still seeing that, but of course reaping the benefits from like all the beauty stuff that I may get. So they get a little best of both worlds, but really the exposure to it is the best thing possible for them, because we don't know what they're thinking all the time. And they may just like, it may just be that perfect seed that's planted for them to be like, I want to do that too, and it just allows them to know that you could literally do whatever you want. Like in school, right? The system yet again, be a doctor, be a teacher, be a nurse, be a lawyer. And it kind of, police officer, firefighter, kind of like that's it almost like, right? That's the only thing we're there for. Sometimes you get a kid that says they want to be an astronaut. Cool, dude, rock out. No pun intended there, right? But you want to still allow them to have the exposure to what is an entrepreneur? What does it mean to run and own your own business? What does that mean for you on every level? And planting that seed, I think it's the most important thing possible to do for children.
I agree. And I like that. Hopefully you're taking your nieces and whoever they are, with you sometime to these events, even if they don't care. Right. And that's
Yeah.
right. I took my to Podfest, which is a big podcasting convention kind of deal. They didn't like it, but they went, right? And then when I held my own event in January of this year, they were there and they listened to the speakers I had and stuff. So they liked that better because of the atmosphere. It was different, but they're there. They were present, right? So they can hear things, they can see things, they can see what you're doing, and I was there, so they were able to hear and see what I was doing. So it kind of opens up that layer where they can just try something new sometimes in their life.
For sure.
Yeah, outside of finance and anything, right? So that's why you keep showing up, keep doing what you're doing, and if you could drag them along, just drag them along. Even there, buy them lunch or something later. That's how it works.
For sure. For sure. And to let them know that, you could do a few things at the same time. I'm not just a financial advisor. I'm a wife. I'm an aunt. I'm a daughter. I'm a school teacher on Saturdays, and I drag my niece to that too. Like, we could really do, most of us wear many, many hats, it doesn't have to limit us from one over the other, right? It's all about prioritizing, but also finding your why if people don't have that. Like, that's probably one of the biggest things too. If you don't have your why, then I feel like it becomes harder to keep that momentum going, and to keep pushing yourself and really getting yourself out there.
Yeah. So I can tell you're very passionate and you really want to help people and you want to provide a lot of value up front, create a relationship. When you sit down with, I'll call her coach, the one that works with you. We sit down with her and you go over your goals. Is that like a financial goal, or is it just like how many people you can reach out to? How many you might be able to connect and assist?
Yeah. So it kind of intertwines a little bit, but most of the time it's more about business strategy, right? So that's what we're able to kind of do. It's also making sure that like you have the right mental space for this, because again, you thought you went through therapy and then you're become an entrepreneur, you may need therapy again.
Oh, yeah. That's why you connect with other entrepreneurs. That way you're not crazy.
100%. Like, and that's the other thing too, like learning to, you have to connect with other entrepreneurs because they're going to understand where you're coming from. They're going to know the struggles, and it becomes just a weight off of your shoulders. Talking to people who do not own their own business or are not down this journey, they can understand, but to an extent. They don't really know the growing pains or the beginning pains of things. So you really need to connect with other entrepreneurs from all walks of the journey that are still new, that are like in the grind of it, and that are like full growth, right? And they're just kind of like chilling at this point in time, right? It's super important. So for me and the coach, we go over a lot: mindset, business strategies, how can we do further promotions for ourselves, or it's a massive community of women. So it's also like, how can we help each other? And the biggest thing is like, share, comments. You know what I mean? Like, it's really the world these days. I feel like such an old lady, but like the world these days is all social media based, right? Like, that's what everyone's on, especially Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the shenanigans. I feel like Facebook is kind of like there, but I feel like it's not as high active as I feel like it used to be. But it's just me. Um, but even like LinkedIn too, like these are all platforms that you can't attack all of them because that's just three jobs by itself, right? So just having a focus, or at least for the temporary being, like if you're going to really focus on social media, like what platforms you're going to really work on and what strategy you're going to work on. And a lot of it's trial and error, right? Sometimes you just got to throw the mud and see what sticks, because what works for one business is not going to work for another, right? So like another business who offers, let's say, skincare products, how they're going to do their promotions is going to be very different than how I do promotions, so just learning, taking ideas and seeing how it fits into your business. So getting very creative, like your creative part of your brain, that sucker's got to click on hardcore for this, at least that's my intake on it. Like I definitely tap into my creative side, which I appreciate and I love because I like being creative. I like literally like creating things. I bake on the side. So like I love literally creating things. So for me, it just kind of fuels that creative, frontal lobe aspect of the brain. And sometimes it just helps me think a little clearer, And so hobbies are super important to have while you're going through this journey.
Yes, I totally agree. And so your husband supported you. You had the coaches and everything, right? Do you have anybody that might be hanging around that or saying that in their heads, maybe they're like, you can't do it, you shouldn't be doing this?
Probably, but honestly, I have worked so hard for where I am and who I am that I literally shut that noise off,
Mhm.
even when it appears in my own brain. Listen, we all go through that imposter syndrome that hits hard sometimes, but learning to shut it down. Like, you're worthy, you're capable, like, you're a badass, like, you got this, and just reminding yourself how far you've come and who you are and just staying true to that. I think that's probably the biggest thing. But yeah, you shut that negativity off. It has no place for growth. Shut it down.
That's exactly right. But you hear that a lot. You hear, it's usually your friends and family that are closest to you, because they don't want to see you excel and be better than them. So that's why I asked, because, there's probably people I knew in the past too that, would have said, don't do this, don't do that, but the way my stuff happened, I lost pretty much everybody along the way anyways, but totally different story. Um, but that's what happens. There's those people that do they're negative, they bring it down because
Mhm.
they're just stuck in their world thinking that they can't do better. So how can you?
Yeah. And it's become very fearful, especially for me. Listen, I have had to had hard conversations. Again, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. Like, you end up having hard conversations with family members that you thought were going to be able to really be even my first clients. And like, hey, let's better ourselves. Like, let's get out of this paycheck to paycheck. Let's start building generational wealth. Like, let's do better, right? We work our butts off. Like, let's enjoy life more, right? Let's prepare ourselves for this. And they were the ones who I thought were going to be the easiest have been the hardest. And I have had complete strangers or people who I haven't had a conversation with in absolute years reach out, connect, and they've become clients. And it's been an amazing journey for both of us. Um, but it can't stop you, and it's a hard hit, right? Especially when you got friends and family who you think have your back and they're gonna like literally go through the trenches with you. And then all of a sudden they're like, sorry, my hands are clean. And like, they're not going to, or even just entertain a conversation with you. You're like, oh, am I doing something wrong? you know, but you're not doing anything wrong. You're bettering yourself. And if they're not ready to be right next to you, just keep going. They'll eventually catch up. Like, they're eventually going to see where this brings us, right? But you can't worry. It's kind of like, don't look in the rearview mirror. Like, take that down. You're not going that way. You're going forward. So if they're not at least in your peripheral or forward, let them go. Let them go. And it does. Listen, I've definitely lost a few people along the way for my journey too. And it sucks. But at the end of the day, then maybe it wasn't meant to last, right? We get people in our lives for a reason, some for a lifetime, some for a season. And sometimes you just get them for a few seasons, and that's what they were there for, to be the support for what you were going through at that point in time, just to whatever it may be, at that point in your life. It doesn't mean they need to be there forever, or which is something as humans, I feel like it's hard for us to conceptualize that. Like, what do you mean we're not going to be best friends forever, or you've gone through thick and thin and you just don't have that relationship like that anymore. But everyone is going to still do what's going to be best for them, what they truly feel is going to be at peace for them. And you just have to stay true to yourself. You're going to still grow, and you're going to meet such amazing people along the way that you almost get replenished with new. And for who you really need in your life, good, better, and different, we're always going to still get those tough ones sometimes across our lives, for whatever challenge or lesson we may need to learn. But just keep striving, and it's hard to shut that noise off, but it's super important, regardless of entrepreneurship or not. Like, you got to shut the noise off. Same thing. I'm kind of going to go back to when you said about your kids, like, there are different options out there. You don't have to go to, college for things. And that was probably one of the biggest conversations my husband and I, when we first met, were because I had my master's in social welfare. That's what I was taught. I was taught to go all the way. And I was like, all right, I guess we're going all the way, And my husband did it. Like, he went to high school and cool. Like, that was it. He works his butt off. He's part of a union now. He provides for our family. And he's an amazing man. So it's just like, our times have changed. We don't have to have that, go to school, get a good job, provide. Like, there are a lot of other different nuggets that we get to implement into our lives to enhance our lives. It doesn't have to be that same story, and I feel like our lives are so different now that it can't afford to be that same story. We have to implement something different in our lives in order to continue excelling for ourselves.
Yeah, that well said. I joke. Yeah, you said it all. Leanne, what would be the next step for somebody to connect with you and learn more about what you have to offer?
Yeah, I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. It's your_financial_fortress. I like people to visit my personal page too. Like, I'm a human. Like, I feel like, it was funny. I was just talking to a coach about this, that I feel like as professionals, as entrepreneurs, we kind of have this white coat appearance for people, and I skeeves me out. I absolutely hate that. But I'm a real person. I'm down to earth, New York, Long Island based, South Shore, all the way. I'm just a Long Island girl just trying to help out other families and individuals just better their livelihood, especially when it comes to obviously the financial industry, right? So yeah, I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I could totally drop you my contact information too. I don't mind. Email, text, whatever is good for everyone else. I'd be more than happy to at least just have a conversation and just see what value I could possibly bring for people.
And does it matter where they live for you to help?
No, doesn't matter at all to me. I'll meet you with where you're at. Obviously, if you're living far from me, we'll Zoom it. We'll virtual.
Yeah, I'm just state-wise, right? You could do any.
Yeah, I could do all of the United States, which is super awesome. So yeah, wherever you're at, we'll meet. It's fine for me.
Awesome.
So I have one question I ask every guest I have on here.
Go
What are
ahead.
what are 3 key things you've learned and used along your journey?
Oh, 3 key things. 1, to stay true to yourself. 2, to be resilient. And 3 would be to have fun. I think those would probably be the most simple, best things that I stay true to and that I carry with me all the time. Life is serious and hard enough. I want to be able to have fun doing this for people. I know finances gives people the heebie-jeebies, but like I want to make this fun for them. Talking about their life and their goals should be exciting for people. And I am typically more happy than people want me to be, but that's just who I am. So I'm always about bringing the sunshine for people. Because I want people to know that there is still good in the world and we're all here to really help each other and just be better people.
That's great. Yeah, those are three great key things that you've learned and used. Definitely being fun and having fun along the way is a huge, you have to have fun, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this, right?
Right, 100%, 100%. Like, unless you wanted to meet the Grim Reaper, like wrong door. Like, you got to go to
Exactly.
the next
Yeah.
one then.
Yeah, we got to stop curling up in a ball and just laying in bed and waiting for the government to support us and take care of us. Yeah, so I'm glad you found something that you're enjoying and you're having fun and you're helping people. So keep at it, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, John. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome.